Hi everyone, Dr. Schwant here with Dreaming Big. Our guest today is Mike Koerner. Mike is a radio and TV personality here at Eagle TV, and he's also a foster parent, and that's the reason why I want to talk to him today, and I'm hoping to get some really good discussion going. So Mike, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks Jamie.
Yeah. So before we get going, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're very familiar with Eagle, and everyone probably knows you by now, but just tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Mike Koerner, Eagle Communications, work on the radio side, work on the TV side, take care of some sales and operations. As you said, foster care worker. I've worked with Big Brothers Big Sisters, former board member with them here in Hayes as well.
So before we get into some of the really good details I want to talk about, foster parent, how long have you been a foster parent? How many foster children? Just perspective before we get into the
my wife and I have been foster parents for about 5 years now. Kids, how many kids? I mean, if you're going to ask me how many kids, we've probably had in the neighborhood of about 140 kids. And you're going to go, my God, that's a lot of kids. But really, we don't have more than 2 or 3 at a time, 4 at a time, maybe at the max. When I say that, what happens a lot of times, there might be something where a kid is maybe in a vehicle with some parents and there's been some kind of a situation on interstate or whatever, and they need a place for a kid to stay for the night.
Respite care, right?
Yeah, respite care. And sometimes it's just overnight. Sometimes it might be midnight or 1 when they call you and say, we need a place for this kid because they don't have a place for him to sleep. So what you do is you bring him in, get him some food or something like that, get him to bed, and then a social worker might come along about 8 o'clock in the morning. So there's times where we've maybe had the kids in our house and I haven't even seen the kids because they come late at night and my wife's taking care of it, and then I go to work in the morning. So there's been a lot of those kind of situations. And then there's been some, I have one girl that's been with us. She was our very first one, her and her brother, and she's been with us for about 5 years now. There was a time where she was being adopted by a family member, but that didn't work out, so she came back. So it was kind of a year break in there, but she was still the very first one we ever had, and she's still with us today, and she'll be a freshman in high school, and so
That's outstanding.
4 more years, and she'll be graduate, and she has dreams of going on to college.
Oh, that's great. As a former foster child myself, writing about foster care, speaking to foster children, foster parents, and then some of the stuff I do for the military as a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, where you're fixing problems, you're a problem solver, you're removing waste from a process, and I've done nothing but talk positive about foster care. It's very hard to want to continue to do it some points, because it could be, I used to say foster care is an opportunity for a child to succeed. Now I say foster care could be an opportunity or should be an opportunity for a child to succeed, because it could be such a great thing. You bring them out of this difficult situation. So in my case, bringing us out of a horrible home. And we put you in hopefully a loving family. And so the families that I had in Kensington, Kansas were phenomenal. But then we'd come back out and you'd go back with your biological family. And then I would just bounce back and forth.
And we've seen that a lot. My wife and I have seen that a lot. And what happens there is, a lot of times they'll bounce in and out of the foster home. They'll be with us, and then they may go with the biological parents. And I'm not saying biological parents are bad, but there was a reason why they were taken out of that situation. And a lot of times they'll come here because biological, there's been situations, and they can be all different, and they are different. But once they go into a biological parent's house, they might not have the rules, the structure that we have in our house. And they come back to our house and they're not really happy about it at first, because we've got rules, and you have to be to bed at a certain time, you have to take a bath every day, and kids don't like that anyway. Even if they're biological, even if they're kids from any kind of walk of life, they don't want to have all that structure. But you try to instill that structure within them, and they get a little rebellious at first because they don't like that. Were you one of those?
Oh yeah. Now I still remember though. You secretly want it, like you want that structure. You know you need it, but yeah, you want to rebel. But in the back of your mind, you want or you need it. And I remember I'd go back home with my biological parents. And I remember it was just kind of one of those aha moments where I went to school, and after I went back and visited with my father, and I remember everyone's like, you smell like smoke. And I was like, I didn't even think about it. And I was like, yeah, I do smell like smoke. I never thought about it before, because that's all I lived doing. You live with is smelling smoke. Like I smelled like smoke all the time. I didn't smell it because I was always smelling like smoke. Just the simple things like that. And you're going home, and you start to realize why am I going home? Like, this could be so much better, especially when you get a good foster family like you, like, why are you going to go home when you know you're going to come right back, And some things like that. Any other, what are some issues that you see as Mike Koerner, as a foster parent, that if you had a magic wand, you could fix? Or if you're in charge of foster care for a day, what would you do?
My God, that's a big I mean, I could go on for hours with that one. but really, what it comes down to, I wish there was a way that the kids would come to the house, and they would understand the rules are for them. And we do get a lot of kids that are like that. There's some kids that come into our house and they say, they don't say it, but I mean, you can tell they're really glad for that structure. There's a lot of them that are that way. Some of them are rebellious against that. When it comes to social workers, that's where I would kind of fix the system a little bit. And I'm not trying to hammer social workers or anything, but the turnover seems to be high. And it seems like for every kid, we see 5 social workers. And that's a lot of people in your house. Say you've got 3 or 4 kids in your house, and you've got 5 social workers. That's 20 social workers trying to meet you in a month. And sometimes they have to meet you maybe once a week, just because of, depending on how long they've been in the house. And that's just a lot of people coming into your house, asking you questions, going through the forms. And I don't know, I wonder sometimes if there's a way that there'd be one point person that could come into our house, they could do what they need to do, and maybe put all of this digitally through like an iPad onto some kind of a system where everybody can have levels where they can see depending on their level in this kid's life, and be able to see that. Because there's HIPAA laws and stuff like that where you can't talk about certain things, and there's probably certain social workers that shouldn't see some of those things too. But if there was a way to put that stuff out digitally and everybody could see it, and I know social workers are going to say, we already have that, but they must not, because there's a lot of times where they come to us, they've never seen that information, they don't have that information, then you have to go all the way back through it. And the other thing that kind of bothers us sometimes there's these social workers that come into our house that try to tell us what we can do better with the kids, when they may have only seen this kid one time in the kid's life, and we're with this kid every day.
So instead of asking you, they're telling you.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll take a brief commercial. When we come back, I want to get to kind of the root cause a little bit, maybe dive into the something you just mentioned a little while ago. And when we come back from the break, I'll remember what that something was. So, but we'll take a brief commercial break, and stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone, to Dreaming Big. So Mike and I were talking a little bit about some of the issues in foster care. And so,
Jamie, this is just too weird for me, you asking me the questions.
Yeah,
I'm usually the other way around. It's the other way around.
That's why you're so much better at this stuff than I am, so,
I'm just going to kick back and you'd go.
So let's talk, I finally remember what it was, because you reminded me during the break. The question I wanted to ask you, you mentioned the high turnover for social workers. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to, why is there such a high turnover? Like, what is your initial impression? Like, what do you think?
I think, and this is just my gut feeling on it, so I don't know if it's fact or not, but what I would say is a lot of them will come right out of college, and they don't know what to expect. And they get into it, and there is so much paperwork and red tape and low pay, and the reality hits them, and it's like, I may go get a different job or get a different occupation.
See, I wonder when they're going to school, do they have to get out and see the kids to see what they could be dealing with?
I think you're onto something there. What I mean by that is we have had some that are interns that come through the house and they do that, but maybe they're just shielded and they don't see it all until they really get into that work.
Are they forced to come talk to you? Like, I know if they go to your house, like, so you mentioned social workers, instead of asking you how can we do things better, they came and try to tell you how to do things better.
Most
right?
of them, yeah, we'll do that.
So has anyone actually came and asked you? 140 kids, right? Or 104, 140?
Somewhere 140, somewhere around there.
And you've been doing it for how long?
5 years.
5 years. So, and I know my former foster homes in Kensington, the social worker there, I know is phenomenal. But no one is asking them, and I'm talking no one from higher level is asking them, what's going on? What can we do better? What are the problems? Does anyone even ask you?
Nobody's asked me.
Not even, and so you think of going through school to become a social worker, like, how is that not part of it? Like, why are you not asking the frontline people? You know, it's like telling a
You know,
soldier
I
to go
get
kick
back-
down a door and not ask the soldier, you know, what's the best way to kick down that door, you know?
You know, they've probably asked some questions in indirect ways and stuff, but nobody's really sat down in depth and really tried to analyze the situation. They come in, they'll bring their papers in. When's the last time they saw a doctor? When's the last time they saw a dentist? When's the next appointment for them? How are they doing in school? And just your basic questions. They don't dive in any deeper.
So if you had to, if they did come and ask you, I mean, I'm sure you'd have a lot to share with them, right? What's one thing you would want to share with them? They came and asked you, Mike, how can we do this better besides automating? And you know, we're 2017. You think we'd have the automating part down, you know? But besides that, anything else?
Well, you know, first thing, we go back to the automation thing that you just talked about. Maybe equip them with iPads or laptops, and I think I've seen one or two with it, but not very many of them, and come out, have their file on their computer, go through everything that they have to go through, and now I just see them going back and they're writing things down on paper. Well, where's that paper going to? Because sometimes we'll lose that social worker, and then another one comes along. They have no clue where all the paperwork's at for them. And I kind of wonder where this is all going. Or is the paperwork maybe sitting there somewhere and this new social worker hasn't had time to look at it? I know that in my job, before I do something, I need to prep. Before I go see a client, I need to prep before I go on the air. Well, are they doing that? Are they prepping before, because they know who they're going to see? They have that scheduled out, typically a month in advance. Are they prepping like they should for each kid and each family that they go see? I wonder.
Yeah, and that's well, one of the things that I do on, you know, for the military with problem solving. I'm trying to think of. It just blows my mind that the prep work, map out your process. Like, there's so many simple things that we could be doing better. And then the biggest thing that blows my mind though is, so in my line of work, when you're trying to improve a process, you go ask what we call, you do a voice of the customer. You go ask, you know, who is the customer? And so why are we improving this process? So for foster care, it should be the foster child, right? They should be the ones that we should be improving it for. And I don't think that's happening. You know, if we did something simple as if we're improving the life of a child, go ask a child, go ask the foster parent, what's going on? If you had to go do something like that, how would you know, removing the automation piece, removing the social worker piece there with the administrative thing, how would you, for that child, improve how they get into the home, leave the home? Maybe what I'm looking for is, what's the focus of foster care? Is there a focus?
One of the things, and this is probably, it just popped in my head, this is probably one of the main problems that I think there is. I think that one of the main problems is there's so many people out there that don't want to do it, and I don't really know why, because I think there's maybe this stigmatism out there and stuff, and they're worried about all kinds of things that could happen. But really, a lot of them, they're just good kids. They just need a place to stay, and you know, you feed them and get them to school and stuff, and really that's what they need. They need that structure in their life and that. But I just wonder sometimes if there would be more foster homes out there, we could match these kids up better with parents. Because what happens right now is there's not enough not workers, but not enough foster care families out there, and there's so many kids, and they're just crushing them into these houses and moving them because they don't have enough families out there. I wish they had more families. I wish more people would do it, even if it's one kid just kind of helping a kid for a little while. And I think that that's something that could solve the problem a lot. Yeah. Is if we had maybe more houses for these kids, and safe houses for the kids to go to. And there's just so many more foster kids out there, and it seems like it is getting worse and worse all the time. And it's not because of the system. I think there's a lot of things going on out there where parents aren't being parents.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And they don't come with manuals, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a perfect point there. I mean, I know it's kind of a joke, but it's not. So we think of improving a process, usually think about how can we improve the speed or cost, right? But no, like, we want quality here, right? Like, instead of figuring out how many kids can we shove in a house or how many boxes can we check, the admin paperwork is done, like, how can we improve the quality? And I think that's what you're getting on. Like, the focus needs to be on proving that quality, right? Not.
It does, but again, we go back to the thing. There's not enough homes in the area, and what happens is there'll be a kid that needs to go to a home here in Hayes, I think there's only maybe 2 or 3 foster homes in Hayes. So the kid needs to go in one here in Hayes, and it's an emergency situation. It's midnight for this kid. Parents messed up, but it's a kid still, okay? And what happens is this kid now is stuck without a home, and he needs a place to go, or she needs a place to go in the middle of the night. And what happens is they've got to call around, these social workers call around late at night trying to find a place for this kid to go. So they call around all these homes, and they finally find one. It may be Topeka or Wichita. So then they've got to grab the kid, and it's midnight or 1, mind you, drive him to Wichita, which is putting him in some home about 3 or 4 in the morning. They get a few hours of sleep, and then all of a sudden social worker will pick him up and bring him back to Hayes where the court is or wherever this is, where their parents are the next morning. These kids are they're tossed around.
Yeah.
And the other thing that really upsets me, and I've thought about trying to get some people together and starting up a campaign to do this, you'll see kids that come to you, whether it's respite or come to you with placement, and they've got everything that they own in a trash bag.
Yeah.
And they're moving around instead of luggage or anything like that. And I mean, who is going to buy the luggage? Who's going to buy that? And maybe I start up a program where we could get luggage for kids and let them travel around so they've got that. But I just hate seeing the kids going around with everything they own in a trash bag.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's a difficult life. And with being a foster child, being a foster parent, social worker, there's so many problems. I mean, and we're talking about human beings, and we're talking about children that it's so important, getting them developed right now. And it's such an important phase of their life that we have to do it right. But one of the advantages, and it's kind of weird to call it advantage, for a kid to go through this difficulty, is they are seeing so much stuff that like a normal person wouldn't see. And if they could learn that, if we could just use this to become better, like this is a difficulty, let's rise above it. Let's use this as our platform to go and prove people wrong and share our story. That's kind of one of the things that I did. I used everything I went through, to write a book, to talk about it with you right here on, for a television show. It's my platform to use, and it's something that I've used to rise above. And I love a quote out there. I think it's Winston Churchill: "Never let a good catastrophe or crisis go to waste." Right. So use it, build on it every day. And even if it's a bad day, even if they go to their home, they have a trash bag and they're stuck in an office. That day is horrible. The next day is different. Like you have a chance to start over right now. So I wanted to make sure that we ended on a positive note in sharing the positive stories that could come out of this. But there is a lot of work to do. And
there's a lot of positive stories that do come out of it, and a lot of times it's just these kids. They'll come into foster care. Then we're doing good with them. The parents start doing good, so they take the kids back to the parents. But all of a sudden, the parents go back to their old ways. They bring them back to another foster home because our home is full, and they see one home. They leave that home, go to parents. Ours is full. They can't come back to this home. Have to go to another home. And it's just bouncing around home to home. Different rules, different settings, different schools, and no wonder they've got messed up lives.
Well, and one of the things foster care did for me, though, if you think
made a lot of friends.
Well, meet a lot of people. I don't know about make a lot of friends. I'm still not good at that one. So preparing me for the military, everything going in the military, moving around, seeing death, seeing adversity, dealing with that type similar stuff. Like foster care was my preparation for the military. Like is another reason like that. It was perfect. It's like training for the military, which that might sound wrong, but that's
no. You've got a positive outlook. That's the way you looked at it.
But I think you and I could probably talk all day,
and we have before.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll probably keep talking when we're done here. Any final thoughts that you have before we kind of conclude the show?
How can you get me that magic wand?
Get your magic wand, yeah. I think you and I got some problems to solve here, and I think we just need to make the right phone calls here initially or something, But I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
So you'll have to get me on yours again here soon, so
okay.
You can do it the right way. So, but thanks again, and I want to thank the audience for tuning in, and God bless the United States of America.